All right, guys, let's dive right into it. Sunny Hostin, one of the co-hosts of The View, has found herself in the middle of a storm, and it's not the good kind. She's facing significant backlash after comparing the January 6th Capitol riot to the Holocaust and World War II.
The View co-host Sunny Hostin even stooped to comparing the US Capitol riots in 2021 to the Holocaust.
January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery.
To compare the January 6th riots to the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews died, not to mention millions of other people, is frankly deplorable, as another famous Democrat might have put it. It trivializes an actual genocide, Louise. I mean, you lose an argument the moment that you invoke the Holocaust.
Either H word, either Holocaust or Hitler. If you're going to compare someone to Hitler or compare a situation to the Holocaust.
Yeah, you heard that right. This is definitely one of those moments that makes you go, what was she thinking? Okay, so here's the deal. Sunny Hostin made a comment during a recent episode of The View where she equated the events of January 6, 2021 to some of the darkest chapters in human history, World War II and the Holocaust. This provocative statement understandably stirred up quite a bit of controversy and drew heavy criticism, particularly from Jewish communities who found the comparison both offensive and historically inaccurate. Let's take a step back and remember what January 6th was all about. The U.S. Capitol was stormed by rioters attempting to overturn the certification of the 2020 presidential election results. It was a chaotic and violent episode that left the nation and the world shocked. But comparing it to the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were systematically murdered, or to World War II, a global conflict that resulted in the deaths of tens of millions, is a stretch that many find not only insensitive but absurd. Now, let's talk about the context here.
I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. And then you started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. You don't move on because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget because past becomes prologue if you forget any rate.
Sunny Hostin's comments came during a segment discussing political accountability and democracy. The conversation turned to recent political shifts and electoral consequences, and that's when Hostin dropped the bombshell comparison. Her attempt to underline the gravity of January 6th by juxtaposing it with these historical horrors sparked outrage across social media, with many calling it a gross oversimplification and historical distortion. Jewish organizations and Holocaust educators were quick to respond, voicing their concerns about the trivialization of such significant historical events. Their argument centers around how comparisons like these not only minimize the suffering and impact of the Holocaust, but also create a false equivalency that fails to recognize the scale and intent behind these atrocities. So, why is there such a strong reaction to Hostin's comments? Well, it's not just about historical accuracy. It's about the responsibility that comes with a platform like The View. Millions of viewers tune in each day, and what the hosts say can shape public perception and influence opinions. When someone in such a position compares an event like January 6th to the Holocaust, it risks diminishing the significance and the unique horror of those historical events. Critics, including notable figures and commentators across various media platforms, have voiced that such statements are not only misleading, but harmful. For instance, a rabbi, Samuel Stern, labeled Hostin's comments as Holocaust minimization, highlighting the offense it causes to Holocaust survivors and their families. Amidst the backlash, there's also a broader conversation unfolding about The View's role in this kind of dialogue. Observers argue that this is another example of the daytime show's controversial history of making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Whether it's a deliberate strategy to spark conversation and boost ratings or just an unfortunate misstep, remains a question for debate. Sunny Hostin, like many other public figures, often walks a fine line between being provocative and being responsible, and this time it seems she may have crossed it. Meanwhile, comparisons have been drawn to the controversy involving Gina Carano, former The Mandalorian actress, who was fired by Disney for her social media posts, which also involved references to Nazi Germany. Critics point out what they see as a double standard, questioning why Hostin's comments have not resulted in similar disciplinary action. Hostin, however, isn't new to broadcasting provocative takes, which sometimes land her in hot water. Earlier this year, she had to read an awkward legal memo on air, a result of another on-air misstep that drew the ire of Disney's lawyers. So this isn't her first rodeo when it comes to controversy, but it does raise questions about whether The View needs stricter editorial oversight or a reevaluation about their content approach. So here's a thought for you, dear viewers. Does comparing contemporary political events to historical atrocities help in fostering an understanding of those events? Or does it rather confuse and dilute their seriousness? Is it more effective to keep such comparisons out of the framework to preserve the integrity of historical tragedies? And in a media landscape that is already so divided, how do we balance free speech with sensitivity to historical context? At the end of the day, Hostin's comments have sparked a necessary conversation, one about the weight of words and the responsibilities of public figures. And whether this will lead to any substantial changes in how The View is perceived or governed, well, I guess we'll find out soon. As this situation continues to unfold, viewers and critics alike will be keeping a keen eye on both Hostin and The View. Will there be an apology or maybe even a resolution that acknowledges the concerns raised without being defensive? Time will tell, and in the meantime, let us know what you think. Do public figures need to be more careful with their words, or does the responsibility lie with how audiences interpret them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.